Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast with Jesse Heater and MJ. In this week's episode, we're going to be discussing Netflix's 8th film, the 2016 sex comedy Brahman Naman, directed by Q, starring Shashank Arora. Welcome, boys, to our next episode.
G'day, guys.
Good afternoon.
It's good to be back for another week.
I feel like this is going to be an exciting episode to discuss.
Can't wait to get stuck in.
I reckon I probably think we should get straight in.
Let's go.
Let's go, MJ. Hit us off.
Brahman Naman. Based in India in the 1980s, this was a perverse and unrelatable story about a sociopathic protagonist who likes to drink, smoke, masturbate, and is good at quizzes. Whilst the plot takes him and his friends to Calcutta for a big quiz tournament, the real story is about him and his equally perverted mates trying to lose their virginity, I think that's what the movie was about.
Very good. All right, so in a bad homage to 1980s teen sex comedies, a group of horny college students in Bangalore who have no idea how to talk to women try to lose their virginities along with competing at the All India Quiz Finals.
All right, my go. A group of upper-class boys are intellectual, but they have no idea when it comes to girls. Using their quiz challenge skills, they travel across India to try and win the ultimate quiz while searching for sexual encounters. So, while we're talking about sexual encounters, I don't...
Oh, what?
What?
Are we doing this, are we?
Well,
Strange topic together.
I don't think this film had anything to do about these guys losing their virginity.
Hey, I just want to preface, and probably want to maybe preface on behalf of you guys as well, is that from what I read online, is that this movie was very Indian and very relatable to people who grew up in India during this time, may have been at the same age as the main characters during this time. And they found the scenes that we found awkward and strange quite funny. And for me, the biggest issue with this film was what I found it so incredibly unrelatable and therefore quite difficult to follow. But I just need to preface that I know the film probably wasn't aimed at me, and that's a lot of the reason why those things happened.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I mean, the movie's set about 35 years ago and just can't relate to anything really that's going on there. And I guess the way the characters talked and acted just seems so different to what you come to expect now.
Yeah, and I feel like that, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of all of us, but I don't watch the trailer, I don't read too much about the film beforehand.
No, ditto.
And going into this film, I feel like maybe it would have been beneficial to actually know what the title of the film meant, because Brahman is a member of the highest Hindu caste, so they were originally of priesthood, so that's part of the title. And the second part is Naman, which is the main protagonist's first name, and it's a Hebrew name literally meaning pleasantness. So,
oh, the irony.
Yeah, oh, the irony. This character is probably anything but pleasant as we go and discuss this film. So knowing those two things probably would have made it, for me at least, a little bit more understandable, but we'll probably get to there. So
you're right, though. Like, we go into these films cold, and I think that's a really good way to do it. I mean, if you want to watch a movie, why do you need to know anything else about it rather than to enjoy it? But if I didn't read the synopsis of this film, I would have had so much trouble following what was going on. And even my fast flicks there spoke about, I guess the general plot of the film. But man, there were times where I had no idea where this movie was going.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon I'm about halfway through the film and I'm still not sure what exactly the story is. It just felt like a bunch of different kind of partying scenes all just being thrown together. And I'm still sitting there going, what is the overall plot and storyline that I'm seeing unfold? I just still don't get what I'm watching.
I'm so glad that you said that. This is in my notes, because I wrote a couple of notes whilst I was watching this film. At the 35-minute mark, I wrote, I'm starting to be able to follow some sort of story. And we know 35-minute mark's probably the wrong choice. But I wrote that when that cricket player was, I thought, introduced as the lead antagonist. I'm like, okay, the film's going to be about this guy being the bad. No, that wasn't even the case. So I was 35 minutes in. I thought I'd figured out what the film about. And no, he was just like a 10-minute cameo.
To me, the cricket guy walks in, I'm like, they've got cricket players as jocks. Like,
I like that side of it. I'm wearing my cricket whites right now. I did play cricket this afternoon. But anyway.
But I don't think I've ever seen a film where the cricket players haven't been like fat slobs and
Mate, it's India.
Grade cricket.
Cricket's god over there. Sorry, it's a religion.
Apart from that Bollywood one, I watched Shane Lee. Has anyone watched that?
Brett Lee. Yeah.
So Shane Lee is his fat brother. Brett Lee.
Also an international cricketer, Shane Lee. Thank you.
But yeah, so I don't know. That really got me. So what else?
If your biggest issue is cricketers being jocks, then you've done it right in this film.
It's a pretty big issue. It's a big issue.
Well, it was pretty big. I mean, there's probably one or two
Come
more
on.
we could talk
Yeah,
about.
all right.
But,
So what else do we know about this film?
Yeah, all right, let's do this.
I guess, look, it's very much like the movie we talked about last week. This one premiered at the 2016 Sundance Film Festival.
I'm glad that you said that. When you said this is very much like the film, I'm like, what did we review last? No, Fundamentals of Caring? No, I'm sorry.
But the interesting thing about that was that this actually debuted 2 days before Fundamentals of Caring at Sundance. So it actually had its debut first, but released later on Netflix.
Interesting.
This was nominated for the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance Film Festival to go along with the Best International Feature Film at the Edinburgh Film Festival.
Alright, so we no longer mention Sundance as anything credible on this podcast ever again. Is that
Who votes?
Hey, at least
Who
it was
votes on these awards?
nominated
Yeah.
and not winning.
a nomination is still something.
I know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we want to talk about critical analysis then. Rotten Tomatoes is 75%.
Okay, and I get that, and I was like, this can't be true. So I clicked on it. How many reviews is that 75% based on?
How many?
8.
Oh, wow.
So 6 people said it's fresh and 2 said it was rotten. So to me,
Yeah.
this highlights that you can't always believe
No, I agree.
Oh, you can't believe
what Rotten Tomatoes
at all.
says.
I
That's-
mean, it did get some pretty positive reviews.
Yeah, it did. IMDb is still 5.7 out of 10.
India has the biggest population in the world.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously first Netflix production in India.
It was, yeah.
As I was watching the film, obviously the film is about trivia and it's about them competing in this trivia thing, but the obvious sort of thing that they did to progress through scenes was having these trivia cards across the screen. There's a trivia question,
Yeah.
and I was just like,
Didn't
throughout
get
the
it.
film, I was like,
Stumped me.
Yeah, got me too. I was like,
Yeah.
what are these
It
questions?
just seems strange to put in there.
So strange.
Well,
the reasoning.
The end of the
behind
credits, the answers were actually in the credits. If you hung around long enough, I know the upside down at the end of the credits. So
All right.
it's probably too busy punching out some notes.
What's the why in the movie to begin with then? Like, why?
But I still,
Yeah.
it doesn't forgive me.
no.
Forgive me.
Another
Forgive
thing,
me.
so when they were filming this film, there was a crew member who failed to understand the concept of sync sound and spoke when they were doing a take.
What?
So the sound engineer sent him on his way, said, "Get out of here, I don't want you out," and threw stones at him. So to me, if you try to do that in Hollywood, you're
different culture, isn't
you
it?
are probably not going to work in Hollywood ever again. I thought that was a quite interesting story.
interesting.
And the director's he also stated that it's not an autobiographical film, but it's informed by certain events that happened in his past life of him and his friends. So to me, I think we're probably going to get onto this soon. But if some of his friends have done that, I wouldn't be friends with
That's what I mean about it not being relatable.
Disgraceful.
them. Some of them.
The very first scene is, I guess most people have watched this film before listening to this, so we can talk about it freely. But when he's masturbating in the fridge, I guess you'd call it masturbating in the fridge.
Well, I don't know if those. I don't know. I think the hands are above the fridge, so I don't know. If
I'd say
that's
he's having sex with his fridge.
He's
Really.
he's using his fridge for sexual. I was sitting there thinking, in what world does this happen? And how on earth does this happen? And it got me thinking. So I'm a huge fan of those crass American comedies, coming of age films, and you think of the opening scene of Superbad, where it's Jonah Hill and Michael Cera talking about what pornography site they want to subscribe to next year. How much more relatable is it hearing them trying to discuss how they can hide the credit card fees or from their parents who are going to see, whether it's Perfect 10. It could be a bowling website. Like that's relatable, fun, childish teenage humor. Not sticking your penis in a fridge. Oh,
and that's one of the
God.
opening scenes. Like
That's the opening scene.
That's the opening.
I mean, for me watching that scene, because this kind of movie was kind of throwback to those 80s and 90s sex comedies. So straight away I see that and I'm thinking American Pie.
Yeah.
And the scene where in American Pie, obviously, where Jim
Has sex with a
pie. But in American Pie, that's about halfway or 2/3 in the movie. It's kind of set up early when his friend Oz. Is telling him, what third base feels like. It feels like sweet
Warm apple pie.
and there's a good kind of music behind it, and it's the scene is played out really good, I think, real comically. Whereas this,
It also opens up for the line, We'll just tell your mother that
It does.
that we ate it
But
all.
I guess because there was that background context of why he did it, because his friend told him about it. This movie opens and this scene is straight into it. You've got no context of what is going on. It just opens like this and you're going, what the hell? What is going on here?
Is the opening scene of American Pie where he's trying to watch the porn channel scrambled and he puts the sock on?
Yeah, I think that's probably about right.
So again, there's no justification there, but feels a lot more relatable.
Because I don't know anyone who's done that with their fridge.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Why are you doing this?
Sex to the fridge.
And you know what? We might not get back onto American Pie. I want to preface: American Pie had heart. You cared for those characters.
absolutely.
They stuck up for each other as mates.
That was a great
this
movie.
This movie had absolutely none of
the
that.
opposite.
The interesting thing, a good connection, I was like, okay, we've just watched The Fundamentals of Caring. And I learnt a new word over these two films, a bovine. These are 2 movies in a row where we've had the word bovine, big cow. I was like, what's going on?
That's right. What do they say in this one about bovine?
I can't remember. But
I remember they did.
And then
I do remember the reference.
And then I was like, okay. And then multiple times throughout the film, I was like, oh no, another Netflix original with another original horrible song. Let's sing about a whiskey bar and how we're going to go.
Was that an original song, was it?
I'm guessing it was, because I can't imagine any artist would put their name to that rubbish.
So, and they brought it back at the end as well about going to the whiskey bar.
It's horrible, wasn't it?
So much of the first 15, 20 minutes was literally just watching these guys get drunk, smoking cigarettes. And I'm just like, why? Well, you haven't set anything up. I don't know anything about these characters.
Absolutely not. Like, there was no preface
And, like-
storyline or anything.
And I think going a little bit back to what you're talking about with American Pie, it's okay to have awkward scenes, but
Couldn't agree more with that. Yeah,
it's fine. But when you have an awkward scene like in American Pie, they're humorous, they're funny, you have a giggle at it. All of these awkward scenes, there were no laughs.
You cringe.
So it was cringe.
Yeah,
So that's
it was cringe
why, they were almost disturbing.
But that's what I mean is it, whether those drinking scenes or whatever were so much more relatable where people, I think I did run my eyes across one review about this where someone was just like, oh my God, this is so me, I'm there. I'm with every scene here. So that's the one thing I need to keep at the back of my mind. I'm still going to, critique because I can only judge this from my perspective. But
Exactly, yeah.
What did you think about the acting in this?
shocking.
Bad, real bad.
Shocking early, and maybe I just got used to it. But I thought it was
But
shocking.
it started off very bad.
Yeah.
I can't believe these guys are actors.
Yeah.
The one, to me, the question, so we've said the acting's bad. Why did they make this in English?
Yeah, I thought that because that's what I was thinking as
Because
well.
I would have preferred to watch this film with subtitles, and I probably would have liked it more.
You wouldn't have picked up on the
I would, because they would have been
bad acting as
you would, because they're not trying to speak in their second language as well as act. They're just acting in their it probably would have been more believable.
There was no chemistry between the characters.
Oh no, not at all.
It was real clunky delivering of lines.
Not at all.
No.
How old were these guys supposed to be?
College.
Yeah, they were college students. So I assume kind of 19, 20.
Did they look?
I'm not sure of the school system.
Did they look 19 and 20 to you?
Oh, they did not.
That's
no.
what got me as well.
Yeah.
I was like, these guys are like early 30s.
Yeah.
Even though I did look. So the guy who plays Naman was 27 when they filmed this.
Oh, wow.
Firstly, he looks a lot older.
Yeah.
Secondly, I couldn't find any
He
ages of
looked
anyone
older,
else in this film.
Yeah, I mean,
And-
I assume they're playing kind of 20-year-olds.
Yeah, that's what I thought
basically.
too. But
Well, even if they're playing 20-year-olds, they
fit.
sit there and perv on a girl, obviously in high school uniform, multiple times.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
Well, there was a lot of kind of those uncomfortable sexual.
that was specifically. They specifically showed that girl with the high school uniform as
Yeah.
well. Like it was a call out
zoomed in
almost.
on that, kind of highlighted it.
Yeah. Anything else to say about these characters?
I mean, I'm sure I don't speak for everyone. I couldn't bring myself to like any of the main characters. I mean, if you're asking me who my favourite character was, it was the main girl who I believe was Ash.
Ash.
It was probably more just because I felt sorry for how she was being treated.
Why does she love Naman?
Oh, I don't know.
Why?
It was...
He is painfully, obviously rude to her.
Yeah.
The whole film, like disgustingly rude to her.
That was kind of thing. I think the way they acted and treated women, I don't see how anyone could like any of those main characters. The way they acted, it was deplorable.
If I had to pick a favourite character, probably the goldfish. You need to watch this film if you don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the characters.
Naman, who obviously is he's the lead character. His name's in the title. He is so deeply unlikable. And I think that was mainly one of the biggest issues of this film. He had no redeeming qualities.
No, but that he was supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
But that makes you really difficult to follow as a protagonist.
It does.
And especially when there's no one else around. And you know what? The one thing that maybe got me going was with Ash. My favourite scene was when... And because past this scene I did hate. But when he's trying to hook up with Ash at the end.
We're talking about that. Yeah, that's the only highlight scene for me too.
Yeah, is it when she knocks him back?
Yeah, and tells him where to go. That's the only good scene in the film.
Yeah, that's the
There's
only
10 minutes to go in the film, and that is the only good.
But even the scene sucks because for some reason they switch roles. Where the hell did that come from? Like,
that's the only redeeming thing is you've got this girl who actually tells him where to go, and he deserved it.
But the worst thing is, Naman doesn't learn anything from this. The next scene you see him, I might as well just marry Ash and do this and do that. Yeah. And you know what? It's nice that you see her with Randy and whatever at the end.
It doesn't seem like...
But he doesn't learn. Like, there's no character development. This guy
think it's all fine what he's doing and he just keep repeating that. He doesn't, there's no kind of redemption arc at all for him. It's just, he's just, a bad guy who treats women badly, and he's just going to keep on doing that.
Do you think they tried to show him growing up at stages throughout the film, though?
So there were when he was with, I think her name's Nana or Nana, at the quiz on the train at the quiz, where you could see him being a bit more human. Mm-hmm. But I think it's still down to his arrogance that he thinks he was talking to someone at the same intellectual level as him. Yeah. That he became more human and normal, which it's almost a worse thing that he would only do that to someone.
Yeah. And then he goes backwards again later in the movie.
100%. He just how about I just hook up with Ash? Like, she likes me. Oh, God, you're a pig.
I feel like they tried throughout the film to try and give him these redeeming moments, whereas they're probably better off just leaving him as a really bad character the whole way through. Yeah. To me, they had that breakdown, the train breakdown. Mm-hmm. That does nothing for the narrative whatsoever, except give him an opportunity to go and get food for the whole train. To sort of say, hey, he's a good guy, he goes and speaks to the people, and he can provide for people. And he's good at doing something. Apart from that, there's no need to break that train down.
But all you show in that is him getting some booze and food for the girls. That's it.
Yeah.
He might have got food for the whole train.
Which you think is maybe
he got it for the whole train.
He kind of, getting for the girls, and his end goal is he wants to sleep with these girls. There's always that ulterior motive.
And then the end really got me where he takes the mic at that quiz and he does this half-assed sort of apology to her. It doesn't even... It
was awkward to watch.
It was awkward. It was.
And it also nothing comes from it.
No, nothing comes from it.
Because she kind of smiles and you're like, what are you doing, love? Are you going to take him back?
No. I didn't laugh once in this whole film.
God, no.
There was
too busy being insulted.
2 scenes where I smiled and went, didn't mind that little scene.
Hit us up.
It was when they're drinking and they chink their chairs instead of chicken their glasses. They go cheers instead of cheers and hit their chairs together. Didn't mind that.
And you know what? Heater actually messaged me today and said chairs, and I kind of laughed.
Yeah,
so. I hated that.
You hated that?
I hated everything else about that scene.
The only other bit that I liked was when they're at the quiz championship, and was their 4th team member their professor?
Yeah, it didn't matter.
Yeah, so that was weird.
Who just turned into this big drunk.
He's kind of half asleep, and the guy wakes him up, and he's like, "Oh, what happened?" He says it's an open bar, and he gets up, walks to the bar, and says, "I'll have 16 whiskeys, please." I enjoyed that.
So that was also the reason why they banned Naman from future quizzes.
Yeah, because
they abused an open bar.
Why was their professor on the team?
Because the bloke who had the broken foot wasn't allowed to come, and then there was no rule about your chaperone not.
So to me, a couple of the soundtrack to this film had some good songs, and I don't understand whether Netflix their funding allowed for these songs to be used, but that's some pretty good 80s music.
It was all I was gonna say. It was all. I did notice it was all 80s music, which fit with it.
There's some good 80s music, so that was all right. And there was
clutching at straws, aren't we?
The scenes on the scooter were the only other things the good camera work. Yeah.
That was all. That one for me. It wasn't the funny scene, but I actually did enjoy the actual scenes where they were quizzing, where they were being asked the questions, answer, and just I do like kind of quizzes and that kind of trivia kind of thing. So I did enjoy kind of watching that for a few seconds.
I like that too. But then like there was like that question about Christopher Columbus. And then they're like, what nationality is Christopher Columbus? I'm like, oh, God, I know this one. Italian. And they're like, Italy.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on! Really?
That really annoyed me.
Italy? His nationality is Italy?
Yeah, that one really annoyed me, actually.
That annoyed me. And then, like, at the start, they're doing that one, what's the publishing house with 2 names? And they're all I'm like, I know the answer. This is going to be Mills and Boon. This is going to be Mills and Boon. And they're like, it's Mills and Boon. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, cliche. So, yes, the trivia, it was like a progression point again, guessing the film, but it was just like, come up with some good questions.
I'm glad you said that. The 2 main plot points that we all reference in our Flix Forum, Fast Flix, was the quiz and was them losing their virginity. But they did a quiz in the first few minutes that set them off to go into this other big quiz, and then it wasn't referenced for like 40 minutes.
No.
And I was like, are they going to do this other quiz?
What's happening?
Okay, they're not going to do it. They are going to do it. And then the losing virginity thing was just not once clear.
It wasn't explained well at all.
As I said, if I didn't read the synopsis, I wouldn't have known that was the main point. As I said, these perverted young men just, floundering around and perving on girls and drinking beers. But there was no Kevin in American Pie. We will get laid.
Yeah.
And I just had no idea that was like a big thing for them.
Yeah.
I didn't know. There's only one little touch on them being a virgin or Naaman being a virgin.
I reckon, the movie starts and probably 15 minutes in, and I'm questioning, like, are these guys virgins? Like, obviously they're in college. Like, are they virgins?
And then the one guy that apparently does have sex on the, like, and then it turns out he didn't.
Yeah, he lied about it.
He lied about it. So
he just what?
But I didn't care either.
Caught up with their boyfriend.
I didn't care about them trying to do that, and I didn't care for them to win the quiz. I didn't care for any of the characters.
Not to after seeing the way they act.
The whole idea of it, like, they're on the train and when Naaman sees that girl, he's like, oh, I'm in love. I'm like.
It's ridiculous.
You've been trying to call this other girl up. For
and who is that other girl?
Oh.
Well, all of a sudden he's at the train saying, I got to call, hey, it's Rita. It's like, is this like a sex line?
I'm pretty sure it was a sex line. Wasn't it?
But where did she come from? Like,
they followed her on the scooter, remember? But that was his interpretation. Well, I may have read it completely wrong way.
No, well, I've got no idea what happened.
So the schoolgirl and the girl walking down the street, that they continued following her on the scooter.
Yeah.
They looked her up in the phone book when they were in the phone thing.
They did,
and that was her number. So his imagination was that that's how sexy she was.
Okay.
It's like, so he wasn't actually calling a sex phone number, but he was calling her, and that's his imagination.
How he's imagining
she
it.
looks.
That's even worse.
He was just stalking her,
He was stalking her. And that's why there was a big deal when he rocks up at her house and she's like,
What the hell?
What the hell, mate?
Yeah.
You've been calling me all this time.
Yeah.
Go away, you're a creep.
I get that now. That is even worse than the original.
This is my category of things I didn't understand. Phone call to Rita at the train station. Who was Rita? Sitting there watching, you're like, what is going on?
That was the girl with the yeah.
I appreciate you explaining that to me.
I'm glad
I feel better about it.
Glad someone picked. Jeez, I may have interpreted that the wrong way.
I like that.
There are a few issues
on some bad scenes. You gonna keep going?
Yes, I've got a page long here of stuff that frustrated me with this film. So we've briefly touched on the opening scene with the fridge, but then let's not just do a fridge. There's a scene with a ceiling fan. There's a scene with a fish tank. I'm not going to go into detail, but if you're sitting there watching this film with anyone other than yourself,
it's disgusting.
I'd be embarrassed.
Yeah,
I'd be sitting there going, what am I watching?
So the fish tank was next level. The fan... maybe I did chuckle at this, but when the mum comes in and turns the fan up, and then he just goes like, oh... that got me a little bit when he
But
the fish tank was way too far.
In there.
Way too far.
You've already gone too far to start the film with the fridge. We already know how perverted he was. There's really no need to go any further with that.
Does this?
So while we're talking about perverted scenes, I guess we'll stick with the same sort of thing.
I'd love to.
The scene at the party
Oh,
They
God,
spend like
that's
this
right.
prolonged amount of time about whether they're going to take this upskirt photo of the girl. And I'm like, what is going on?
That was
This
so
awkward. And then instead of taking an upskirt of a girl, they decide to take photos of guys' wangs and spread them around the classroom.
Yeah, I was
not expecting that.
The whole scene of them, like, you know, trying to get up under the skirt, I was just sitting there almost with my head in my hands going, what are they doing? Like, this is just not on. I think there were a few kind of that kind of vibe scenes where I was just, this isn't... I mean, there's a... I can't remember exactly the points, but a guy, he says to his friend, like, you know, is visual rape a crime? And he's like, if it was, then we'd be doing 10 to 20.
Yeah.
That's just a bad line to say. And the one we covered before where Naman and kind of Ash are kind of kissing and he kind of covers her face and then his friend switches in there.
So why do they do that?
It's just really, really distasteful.
Like, why did they switch places?
I don't understand why the friend came in the first place.
So I wasn't expecting that, but all I can gather is the scene before they're in the bar and he was something about like, oh, I'd never be with her because she has acne or something.
I get that.
Like, I would. So obviously he's like, you know, my mate. I'll set him up with my mate.
But I mean, those couple of scenes really give, you know, that kind of real, you know, sexual assault kind of vibe. That is just, it's just not on.
No, not at all.
A bit rapey here.
Absolutely rapey. It's hard to watch.
I want to ask you this question. This is more of a technical camera angle sort of question. So you notice a lot of the drinking scenes that they had these almost extreme close-ups with the lens going almost quite wide.
Yeah, like fisheye almost.
Yeah, so to me, I got no sense of environment and actually felt really claustrophobic. But this was obviously a tactic during the drinking scenes to do this. How did you feel about that? Because it didn't sit well with me. I struggled to watch it. So I felt claustrophobic watching it. But it was trying to get some sort of disorientation vibe. I don't know.
I don't know whether that's... I'm not a massive... Like, I don't know a lot about Indian culture.
Yeah.
But to me, his parents are like, you're a letdown if you drink, you booze. The same with that guy, the dad who takes the guy away. Yeah. So I feel like it was like almost an opposite to the scenes, and we saw him 2 or 3 times throughout the film where he's actually sitting there having meals with his family, doing the cultural religious scenes where they've got the smoking incense and that sort of thing. So I know whether it was like trying to contrast and say, hey, he's trying to be committed to his family, he's trying to show that he's still connected to his community, his culture, his religion, and then it's like, bang, here's the complete opposite, and it's like he's out of control, he's... I don't know if that's like...
Yeah, sure.
That's... I don't know if I'm pulling at straws.
I just didn't enjoy it from a spectacle point of view.
I didn't enjoy watching.
Like, it
just
made
it really hard to watch.
But maybe that's them saying like, we don't like this drinking alcohol is bad, and you connect that awkwardness to we don't like this.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That's my take. I don't know, but that's just me. Could be completely wrong.
There's going to be people who actually know what they're talking about listening to this going, oh, these guys.
These guys have no idea what's going on.
That's the point of the movie.
There was one scene where they're like, if everyone gets degrees, who will clean the toilets? And I was like, how is that dialogue in a film?
It's really poor.
How is so much in a film?
I'm not gonna repeat some of the dialogue, but some of the dialogue sexually was just, you don't say that out loud.
Yeah.
And it's not funny. Like, I don't know whether it's because we've changed, like, but even though you're trying to portray the 80s.
I was going to say,
we're not in the 80s.
Let's not sit there and go, this is an 80s film. No, this film was made a couple of years ago.
So you're actually showing what's going on at the time. You're not showing what was going on.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Which really, gets to me a little bit. The start, and I think it set the film off really on that path where they're sitting there in that, it was like the draft almost for the quiz teams, and they turn around to the girl and they go, keep your mouth shut and they'll win.
Yeah.
I was like...
That kind of sets it up for how they treat women throughout the film, and it's just not a good start.
No.
And I remember me thinking just straight away, watching that scene going, okay, I'm in for a battle here.
And like,
it's going to be hard to watch.
They're on the train and there's these girls that walk on and they're sort of covered up a bit and they're like, oh, make a joke, oh, we're not going to go with those girls. They're, set for arranged marriage and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, if we made a film and included those jokes,
I think the kind of like the idea kind of the film is that these guys, they don't know how to talk to women, but there's a lot of this stuff that is taken too far. Like trying to explain it, like I guess trying to show the audience just too much by going over the top and over the top, all these examples of it. It was far too much.
What did you think of the weird animated scenes? Where he gets really angry and he turns into this cartoon character. It's like he's the Hulk and it's like, oh, I'm angry.
Yeah, to be honest, I tuned out during them. I feel like they weren't relevant. It was almost just like a little intermission thing for me, but that's probably wrong.
To me, they were kind of like the trivia questions they put up on the screen. Like, why are they here?
It was almost like
why are they even there?
It takes
like
you out of it. The best thing about, you know what does this? There's a gag on Family Guy when Peter's at the theatre and he's sitting in the front row and he feeds back to the person and he goes, not bad, but I know that I'm watching theatre right now. And I think that's the best thing about a movie is when you just can get completely lost in the movie. And those moments with the quiz questions and the cartoons completely take you out of any opportunity to get into it.
Yep. Is there anything else that we want to say negative? Are there any other scenes that have been...
Are we talking negative stuff? I thought we were just like talking about the film.
Forgettable scenes, anything that stood out.
Negative scenes,
man.
not in terms of scenes. They're just they're all pretty poor in the end, aren't they?
Well, that's literally I've just been reeling off every scene that's done my head in.
But you know, it's interesting to talk about. Like, this movie was nominated, didn't win obviously, but was nominated for awards at pretty big film festivals. What are we missing? That's a hard question, because I know we all have pretty severe thoughts about how bad this film was, but what is it? What is it? What's there? I know.
I can't answer it. I've got no idea.
It was awkward. Like, I think I'm coming back a bit to what I said before. You have all these jokes, and if you sit through an hour and a half of jokes that don't land, that are just awkward jokes, it makes you sit there and think, wow, what was there to enjoy about that film? If you don't connect to any of the characters, you don't laugh at any of the jokes, and the plot is about a group of people going on a train to a quiz contest, it's like, what connection do I have to this film?
Yeah, that's a good point, but I have to think that the director didn't want you to connect to these characters. He had nothing to work with. That was his goal. That was his goal.
Yeah.
So they've created this film. Can you think of another film? Let's just talk about from a protagonist perspective, where you don't like the protagonist, but he also or she doesn't redeem themselves at all throughout the film.
American Psycho.
I like the protagonist in American
Yeah,
Psycho.
and the thing about it, but you like him because you find him
Interesting.
cocky and interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas this guy's cocky and not interesting.
Yeah.
So I get it's a good question.
It's so unique, and I'm like, okay, maybe as a formula, this doesn't work.
Oh,
Well done for trying it, Q, but you've let everyone else know not to try it again. Because it just baffles me. Like, at what point were we supposed to go, he's all right? Or even if we didn't, he's grown. Okay, we've got none of those things. What are we supposed to like? I don't know. Maybe it was all about the gags, and they didn't land for us.
Funny.
but at the end of the day, this film was probably we're not the target audience.
And that's what we got to keep coming back to. We've got to keep coming back to that.
With that. We're not the target audience. This film was not made for us. This film was made for an Indian audience. It was picked up by Netflix and given to us to watch. So we've just got to take it.
We can only call it as we see it.
Yeah, exactly. What themes? This is a tricky one because
that's the big thing for me is just the mistreatment of women by males in that era.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd say just in general in that film. I was like, do you think that was a theme? Yeah, of course it was a theme, sorry.
And I have this down, and I was reading something when I was doing some research for this about how one of the cities in India, it was the director, and he was talking about how it's the rape capital of India or whatever, and how he wanted this film to highlight that that's not right. So I think the film does a good job of not glorifying the male gaze. So yes,
true. You don't like what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
None of us liked what those guys were doing, like staring at those girls, and they did that through good, like the music. As soon as they're sitting there staring at the women, the music would cut. They'd have lots of little quick cuts of, with the women. You'd see even that poster they had where they had the naked lady and they were like salivating over her nipples almost, and that was awkward. You didn't like them for that.
Areola.
Yeah, sorry. you didn't like them for that.
That's true. Yeah. And let's give that credit, is that whilst it was a deeply uninenjoyable experience watching it, if that was the message he was trying to portray, that this behaviour isn't on, tick, like he did it.
And so we spoke at the start, I was like, the Brahman is meant to be the highest class in society, and I think there are examples throughout where obviously we don't know their classes in their society, but I feel like they were having a go at the Naman the whole way through about how he's supposed to be upper class, but he's not. And that was highlighted at the end where he's got this girl who's almost been obsessed with him the whole film. He's treated her like rubbish, absolute rubbish, and she's sitting there ready to give him all. He makes her put a scarf over her face. Oh, sorry, before that, she's got a bottle of alcohol, and he's like, I'm not going to drink from that bottle as you because you're not the same class as me.
Just talks down to her.
To me, that's
she's not on the same level. Yeah.
And I don't connect with that whatsoever. So I think and throughout the film, there were all these little digs about, she's Christian, she's this, she's that, blah, blah, blah. So I feel like we may not have picked up on everything in it, but that was probably going throughout as well.
Yeah. Another one I had was, I guess, more kind of on the trivia side of it. These guys were great at trivia and really book smart, but they knew nothing about talking to women. They didn't have the social skills, so it was kind of like, you can be as intelligent and as book smart as you like, but that doesn't equate to the outside world and being able to socialise and be a functioning member of society.
There was a dig at intellectuality in general.
I think when they got to that final quiz, the quiz master or the host, I think he said, India's search for knowledge and revel in display in this knowledge is, that's what they live for, is that they want...
True, knowledge is,
And you think Slumdog Millionaire, what's that? The core of that film is about
the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So obviously trivia and knowledge is something that's really a big part of their culture. Which is...
Oh, God, I can't believe you just brought up Slumdog Millionaire in it. That actually, I had a question for you guys. Is this movie different if Naman is played by Dev Patel?
No.
Does he still act the same?
Because if he's still surrounded...
Because that's what I'm watching a film of people I don't know, and I was trying to think, what if a main character is recognisable?
I think I'd still like to think that I would view it based on how the character acts and how, all his disgraceful qualities, rather than looking at the actor and saying, I like him. I'd like to think it wouldn't change based on the character.
I feel if nothing else, I think Dev Patel might have been able to progress the plot a little bit better.
But it's who he's surrounded by. It doesn't
I know.
Wasn't a great supporting cast.
Not at all.
I mean, it would have been so jarring to see him in this, but had to ask the question.
I'm glad he wasn't.
For his sake.
Last little thing. You think about it, all the women in the film all walk away from the men. Apart from the last scene where you see the girl walking off, but all the women walk away from all the men in this film. So there's no real happy ending at the end for any of the men in the film.
But
the main men that you follow.
In a sense, that is a happy ending for the audience. Man, I would have been pissed off if he had ended up with Ash.
Would have been
you know what? But because I dislike this film so much, I would have enjoyed it to give me more reason to dislike it. But again, I guess that's a little tick for the filmmaker.
Yeah.
Alright, so obviously we all think this film's pretty ordinary.
We did.
I hated it, man.
On the big screen, probably not going to make a difference.
I would have been very upset.
I've never walked out of a movie. 100% would have walked out of this. 100%.
And we're probably not recommending to watch it at any time, at any stage in life, with anyone.
No, but I've got passionate thoughts if anyone wants to chat about it.
We're doing pretty well at the moment.
I'll point them towards this episode.
Did anyone go on IMDb?
Yeah, I jumped on about a quarter of the way through the movie to see who the writer was and if this was his first time writing a movie because it was that bad.
You didn't go on to check how long was left?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I didn't go on. I didn't go on IMDb this film because I just kept hitting the click button on Apple TV to see how long to go.
I went on IMDb afterwards to check how old the guy who played Naman was because, again, I was like, these guys are like 40.
One thing that I was reading, they were talking, like, most of the stuff I read online talked about how much they like this film. So one thing that I read said, a good satire holds a mirror up to society to reveal its flaws. What flaws does the film reveal? I was like, how can you think so deeply about this film?
It's too blunt, though, the film.
Oh, it is massively blunt. It's not like an underlying message. It's like, in your face, guys.
This is bad.
Yeah.
This is bad.
And I think I can tie this off really, like, at the end of the film when the girl says to Naman, go away. She goes, arrogance is a front for your ugliness. Because he was ugly.
He was.
His character was disgusting.
Yeah, I agree.
And maybe that's good on that guy.
They painted him to be ugly. Like, it's not like...
No.
Every scene you see him in, this guy's disgusting.
And maybe that's good on the guy for being such a good actor that we hated him that much.
Yep, fair enough too. I'm not angry at the guy.
Any other questions? Any questions anyone's got for us?
My dog didn't bark.
Dog didn't bark. Good.
No.
Did it walk out after 10 minutes like I wanted to?
I don't know where he was actually. I reckon he was snoozing in another room. Maybe lucky bastard.
First minute. So we'll wrap it up with our overall results, I guess, with our ratings.
Yeah.
Peter, hit us up. Drum roll. What did you give it out of 5?
All right. Look, this film was awful. I thought, look, it tried.
Surprise.
It tried so much to be a classic sex comedy like Animal House and American Pie, but it just fell so short. And in 2019, this kind of film just doesn't hold up. Even if it was set in the 80s and it was supposed to be portrayed in that way, I thought it was poor and distasteful and pretty disgraceful. We mentioned a couple of funny moments. Other than that, I did not find the film funny. It was a struggle to get through. And I've thought about this for a couple of days now. This is the worst movie I've ever seen. Single-handedly the worst movie I've ever seen. It gets half a star out of 5, and it's lucky that we have to give it a score.
I will.
You don't have to give it a score.
Right.
But you need to hold tight in case
Yeah.
you do see another movie one day.
We'll give it half a star. It was a pretty disgraceful movie. MJ?
Man, this was painful to watch. I ordinarily wouldn't have gotten through the first 15 minutes. I had a lot of trouble following the plot. I disliked most, if not all, of the characters. But I can also recognise that the film wasn't for me. Pretty easy to give half a star as well.
Wow, I've got some big shoes to fill.
What do you think, Jesse?
You'll bring it back up.
We've watched some great films. We've watched Based on Donation. We have watched
Fundamentals of Caring.
Fundamentals of Caring.
Classic.
And I even gave Pee-wee's Big Adventure Holiday, whatever that was called, 3 stars.
Big Holiday.
Well, he has a movie called Big Adventure. I
Yes.
got them confused. So for me, this film is rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
I love that you set that up to be positive. When me and Hida have spoken for 30% of this podcast, and you've been excellent talking about how bad this film is. As if everyone's going to be like, oh, Jesse liked it.
This film was rubbish. So I'm going to give it half a star as well. And only because of the soundtrack and because the girl at the end told him where to go. That's it. They're the only things I'm giving it half a star for. Otherwise, I would have given it nothing.
All right, that's a pretty easy one to average out. This is our lowest movie at half a star.
Half a star, not getting any more. Wow.
Please, Netflix, don't give us any more of these.
So, social media. We, as usual, thanks for following us. If you've made it through this podcast, we thank you for staying through with us. We are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook. We are the same name on all platforms, Flix Forum. So please search for us, follow us at Flix Forum.
Some good conversation during the week as well, so please keep doing that. We're all for
those
it.
comments coming.
And
It'll be great.
we're going to try and hit that conversation again this week with our question of the week. So Naman's says to his dad at some stage during the film, he goes, "You work hard so I don't have to." Is this where we are at society, where parents work so their kids can have what they want? Tricky one.
Good one.
I like that, Jesse.
I saved that one for
bloody love your questions.
I saved it for social media so we didn't chat about it.
I'm going to have to jump on again.
We are all getting on to give our thoughts rather than on this podcast. So
Love it.
please follow us and subscribe. We need subscribers on Apple Podcasts. Hit the subscribe button. Give us 5-star ratings.
We don't need it. I mean, we're going to keep doing this regardless.
We are, but the more the merrier. The more 5-star ratings we
Let's get a
get,
few more of these movies.
Yeah.
the more people can see us. So
We'll be Stan Forum after this.
Stan, hint, 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 hint. So next week we are going to be looking at the 2016 thriller Rebirth.
Thriller.
Thriller film. Finally, we are off these so-called comedies. It's directed by Carl Mueller. It stars Fran Kranz, Adam Goldberg, Nikki Whelan. I think Nikki Whelan's Australian.
Absolutely Australian. Where's Nikki
Wheel
Whelan
of Fortune?
from? Yeah,
Wheel
I
of
was
Fortune.
Say.
She used to turn the titles.
Yeah, is Nikki Whelan in this?
Pretty sure that's that Nikki Whelan.
Ah, cool.
I think
Okay, here we go.
if we are wrong, we'll tell you next
Nah.
week. Kat Foster, Andrew J. West, and Eric Layden. So please watch the film so you can have a laugh with us, have a giggle if it is horrible, like our past few films. Sorry, Fundamentals of Caring. Other than that, it's been good.
Nikki Whelan. It is the Nikki Whelan, by the way.
It is the Nikki Whelan. Good. So we're going to have a good discussion next week. Thanks for listening. As usual, thanks, boys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, mate.
Boys, it's been fun.
Hopefully
See you next week.
better next week.